What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and I guess I should really be welcoming myself back. I have not recorded a YouTube video in a hot minute.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I guess I have a good reason for not recording because I had a baby. This is Sutton Lane. This is our 4-week-old little munchkin. He turned 4 weeks yesterday, and I guess this is like his birth announcement video on my channel because this is his first YouTube appearance. We are so happy and so excited. It's been a whirlwind of an experience.
Exhausted.
So tired. But we are just so over the moon, and we've been really taking the last 4 weeks to just soak in this time together as a family. And now we want to share a little bit about his birth. Oh gosh, it feels like...
It was really hard for me. It took just a lot of effort on my part, physically, emotionally, mentally, and I'm really proud of me.
I'm really proud of you. Without further ado, let's talk about Sutton's little birth story. He's the cutest little munchkin.
We've already started figuring out like parenting hacks. We were like, oh, we want to do this video. How do we do that? Because like he's not sleeping. We got to get him to go to sleep. And like, how can we guarantee that happens? And so far, 100% of the time that he's in the car, he falls asleep. And I've heard that that's usually the case.
Yeah.
And it's the case this time too. And so I was like, great, I'll just take him out on a quick drive. Fed him, took him out on a quick drive. I think it was like a 10-15 minute drive just around the neighborhood, like in circles. Now he's just been out for like
he's so
an hour
out
and a
that
half.
I keep checking to see if he's breathing. I feel like we could go in circles just talking about like how obsessed we are with him.
We do with each other all
But
the time.
this video is his birth story, so maybe we should just backtrack a little bit.
Right.
Sutton's birth story. He was born on March 25th at 5:30 in the morning. There's honestly not a lot to say about his birth.
Just want to start from the beginning?
Yeah.
Just do a little quick, just go over it. Just a quick little...
Yeah, I guess I could start from the beginning. I didn't rehearse this. So on Friday night, because March 25th was a Saturday, so he was born March 25th, 5:30 in the morning. It was 11:30 on Friday night, and my water broke in bed, and I was like half asleep.
Yeah, because we've been talking.
Yeah, we were just up in bed talking, I think about Sutton. Yeah, we had watched Ted Lasso and went to bed probably around 10:30, and so I was starting to fall asleep around 11:30, and my water broke. I was 38 weeks and 5 days at that point. That I think was like the most surreal feeling ever. I wasn't sure if that's how I would go into labor. Obviously, you're never sure. My mom went into labor for me and my brother, and both times her water broke, but I've had tons of friends and family members who just went straight into like contractions and their water never broke. So I was unsure what it was going to be like for me, but my water did break. That was the weirdest feeling ever. I was like, Sam, my water broke, and I'm like shooting out of bed, so much so that barely any of my water got onto the bed, and it was all over me because I just instantly shot up.
It was pretty impressive.
What did you feel at that moment in time when I was like, hey, Sam, my water
broke? It was like
broke?
a surreal moment.
Really?
Where I was like, really? Like, okay. And then I was like, and it just like didn't dawn on me, like the magnitude of the situation hadn't dawned on me yet. And I was like, okay, her water broke. And I think I was like tired because like we just like literally had just fallen asleep.
And we're not late night people either,
we're
so
not.
11:30 is kind of late for us.
Right. And so so like the magnitude of it hadn't like settled yet. It kind of just gradually came in, and then I was like, oh crap, okay, so like we're like, this is happening now. Like this is no longer something that's going to happen in the future.
I think we were just having a conversation in bed about him arriving and him getting here and like what that was going to be like for our lives, and like deep conversation.
Yeah, especially because I think we had also talked a lot about the timing of when he was going to come, because that day we had actually had a conversation with the midwife.
Oh yeah, I had my 38-week appointment that day.
And the midwife had said, she's like, you most likely are going to go to like 41 weeks, 42 weeks, because you're a first-time mom, and that's just typically what happens. That was kind of like what we were like mentally prepared for it to happen that night. It's a little ironic.
Yeah, and that's like a common theme throughout this labor, actually. So my water broke, and I shot out of bed, and literally
I got a hair on my face.
Dog hair? You have one right here too.
They're everywhere.
So I shot out of bed and I ran straight to the bathroom. I got this like immediate adrenaline rush as soon as my water broke, because it hit me that I was going into labor, and obviously I have never pushed a human being out of me before. So I got this like immediate adrenaline rush of like, oh my gosh, I'm about to go through the most intense, crazy thing that I've ever gone through in my entire life. Like, what's it gonna be like? And I got really nervous for like 5 minutes, and I just had like the shakes immediately.
We were just standing in the kitchen for like 30 minutes, just like talking was like, well, what do we do now?
Yeah, and I had the shakes. I put on a robe. I got out of my pajamas because my pants were like soaking wet from my water. So I just stripped down because I was still like, once your water breaks, you're still like leaking water. And so I was like, I don't want to put any clothes on. So I put a robe on and I was just walking around in the kitchen having the shakes. And I was like, what do I do? What do I do? We were told if your water breaks to immediately contact the midwife that was on call at the birthing center and our doula. Sam contacted them.
I just text them. They both said, oh, great. Like, that's exciting. Go back to sleep.
The midwife asked you questions though.
She did, yeah. And I'm not trying to sound condescending to them, but it was just kind of funny because that was like a common theme of like, not yet, like wait, like it's not, you're going too fast, like that's unrealistic. And from how early you went into labor to how fast the labor started going to all of it.
Yeah, what questions did she ask you though?
Well, she asked like the color of the liquid, like contractions, how you were feeling, and then like asked if I had told the doula yet, stuff like that. And then I would update her kind of every once in a while, like as it kind of progressed, and she would ask questions then as well of just like sensations that you were feeling and whether or not she was like something about like a pressure in your lower back and if it was there consistently.
And if I was like bleeding, bright red.
If she was bleeding, stuff like that, like I needed to let her know, and so just to keep an eye out for it. But none of that ever happened.
So immediately when my water breaks, I'm like, I feel like this is gonna go really quickly, but I had this adrenaline rush. The midwives and the doula both texted Sam back and they were like, try to get some more sleep because, you'll go through early labor. And the plan was for our doula to come to our house when I went into active labor. We had previously downloaded an app on Sam's phone to like track my contractions and the intensity of them, and you really just hit a play button when your contraction starts and stop it when it stops, and then it tracks them for you and gives you this graph of like how frequent they are and all this stuff. I was like telling Sam like, get the bag, put it here, all this stuff. Like I was like ready to go because I just had this gut feeling that it was gonna go really quickly. And I also had a gut feeling that he was gonna be early, but everyone was kind of telling me otherwise. Those first 10 minutes afterwards when I was like, Sam, get the bag, all this kind of stuff, Sam was like, okay, but the midwife and the doula are telling us to go back to sleep. And I was like, I don't really think that that's gonna work out. And I hadn't really had any contractions yet, but I was feeling like just kind of crampy. I think this lasted a whole 10 to 20 minutes, but it really, like, my sense of time probably is not, you probably have a better sense of time than what I did. Like
before you started having contractions, it was actually pretty immediate. You were like, I feel crampy, because I was like, well, are you having a contraction? And you're like, I just feel crampy. I think you understood like that's what it was going to build from that. But like those cramps were immediately there.
And I also didn't know if I was feeling crampy because I had that adrenaline rush. And sometimes I feel like when you get an adrenaline rush, you can get like, I don't know, different sensations in your body. And so, you have dog hair on you?
I think so, somewhere. Is it like right there on my, it just was like tickling me.
Is it gone?
I think so. I don't know.
It probably was 10 minutes of just crampiness, and I was telling Sam to get all the stuff together. And
because we didn't even have everything packed yet because we were like, it's gonna be another 4 weeks, like we got time.
And I had just recorded my what's in my hospital bag.
We didn't have the car ready.
Nothing was ready. And they were telling us to go back to sleep, and I'm like, man, I just don't feel like I should be going back to sleep. All of a sudden I started getting what I felt like were contractions, and they were, but I just couldn't decipher them because they were pretty mild. They were pretty consistent. They were like 45 to 50 seconds long, and they were
2 minutes apart.
2 minutes apart. And so I pretty much went straight into active labor. That really confused us because we had a sheet on our fridge of like, this is early labor and this is active labor. And so they were like, at first you're going to go into early labor and you're going to have contractions that are like anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes apart. They'll be super mild, like you'll be able to sleep through them or eat or do something through them. I'm like looking at that sheet and I'm looking at the graph after I had probably like 20 contractions, and I'm like, Sam, I feel like I'm in active labor. Like I can talk through these contractions. They're getting a little bit more intense, but like they're definitely really close together. After that, I feel like you texted the doula and you said something along those lines, right? You're like, hey, this is like, they're really close together.
Yeah, because we were just confused, and so it's like, well, we should at least just like let her know. And so we let her know, and she was like, oh, okay, well, she's like, do you want me to come like over now, or should I wait? And I think at that point we were like, oh, well, let's wait. And then it like just continued to increase.
And she told us to do like different positions, like different things that are you're supposed to do in early labor, like a side-lying release position, a circuit. What is the name of the Miles circuit? We tried to do those, and I was like, there's no way. And these contractions were definitely getting way worse. And I don't know at what point in time they switched for me to be like, I can't really, like, these are way too painful.
Once we told, I think we told the doula to come right before they got to that point, because you were experiencing those right as she was like arriving. She was like 20 minutes away.
I was like feeling to the point where I can no longer stand through these contractions, and that was my big thing. Most people said like, you can't talk through a contraction, which I didn't talk through contractions, but I didn't feel like talking was my issue. I felt like standing, like I couldn't stand. And I immediately was like, I have to get on my hands and knees. And that was the only way I wanted to deal with a contraction. I wanted to get on all fours and just let it happen. And I actually got on all fours on the dog bed initially, because we have a memory foam dog bed.
It's a really nice dog bed.
And so
nicer than our bed.
It is. I also used the yoga ball to kind of like anchor the front of myself because my arms got really tired after a while. I remember Sarah, our doula, getting there. She got there probably 2 hours after my contractions started. Because it was going so quick, you know, she was under the impression, she was just like, yeah, you're a first time mom, like this will last a while. And I think one of the first questions I asked her when she got to our house was, when can we go to the birth center? And she was like, oh, we've got
some time.
Yeah, she was definitely like, oh, we've got a bit of time. And she also asked us if she could bring a doula student, and we were fine with that. So I think the student came probably, I don't even know how much longer.
She got there like 15 minutes later.
Yeah, my perception of time is a little off, because my contractions at that point were getting to the point where they were just extremely painful. And I don't know how long I had those contractions on the dog bed.
Well, we went into the birth center at like 3:30. You were probably on the dog bed for, I don't know, maybe 3 hours.
Really?
Yeah, because I think
to me it felt like 20 minutes. I reached a certain point where I really wanted to go to the birth center and get into the water, and nothing tipped me off to that. No one said anything. Mm-mm. I think I was just like, some warm water sounds really nice right now. I looked at our doula and I said, like, can we go to the birth center? I really want to get in the tub. She was like, no, it's too early. Like, you've only been at this for a little bit. I got on all fours on our shower floor and had like the hot water hitting my back. That's when I was kind of like in my transition period. That was definitely the worst part of my labor. I would say that was the most painful experience of my life. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. I thought I was going to throw up. And I tried doing a few contractions on the toilet, like backwards, because some people said that was better for them.
Yeah, it didn't work.
That did not work for me. I did not like toilet contractions. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. We also don't have any back. We're like sitting on the bed, so.
Oh.
So I transitioned in the shower. I got to a point where I felt like I needed to push, and I felt like Sarah, our doula, she was just kind of like, oh, because I looked at her and I don't know what I said actually at that point. I don't really remember transition all that well. All I remember is feeling like I need to push.
Yeah, you just looked up and you just said, I feel like I need to start pushing.
Yeah, and I don't know, we were probably in the shower for
30-40 minutes.
So I looked at Sarah and I was like, I need to push, and then she was like, oh, okay, well, we need to go to the birth center. She contacted the midwife on call and said, hey, we've got to head to the birth center. Then she looked at Sam and she told him to go to the car and get the car ready. The student doula was kind of in the back of the bathroom, and Stark had come into the bathroom.
Yeah, we had closed the door, and he had like wiggled his way in without anyone noticing, and was just sitting in the corner like watching.
Yeah, and the student doula was like, can Stark come say hi? And I was like, oh yeah. I vaguely remember him coming over and kind of like licking my face and making sure I was okay. Our doula told Sam, okay, go get stuff ready in the car. And I remember at this point feeling like a little peeved, because I was like, do not make Sam leave me right now. Like, I need Sam. I didn't know this, but I was at peak labor. I was in excruciating pain. The contractions, like, I felt like I needed to hold on to Sam during those contractions. So I was like, do not make Sam leave me. And Sam left to go get the car ready. I remember like trying to go follow him, and she asked me to do like, I think she said 2 more contractions in here and then we can go. And so I remember in my head mentally just being like, I've got to get through 2 more contractions. And I had gotten out of the shower at this point, and I was on like the bath mat in the bathroom floor, and I went through 1 and I waited however long is between contractions. And then I went through another one, and I just got up and I bolted my way to the car because I was like, I have like 40, 50 seconds between contractions, and I need to make it to the car before I have another contraction because I do not want to be standing up when I have another contraction.
So my perspective of this moment of the story was really funny. Doula's like, hey, go get, load up the car, get it going, because we're going to leave soon. So run out, grab all like our luggage, all the stuff that we'd prepped, and take it out. I think I did 2 trips, and on the final trip I'm up there and I'm thinking in my head like, okay, like I think I got everything, now I got to go back downstairs and help Sam up. And in my mind I was thinking I will possibly have to carry her completely. We were down in the basement and I was thinking, yeah, like I'm gonna have to like carry her up the stairs. That was like what I was like next on my to-do list, is like go get Sam, go help her up here. And I'm walking from the car back into the garage. I'm just walking like my head's down, just thinking, and I look up and she's walking down this ramp that we have in the garage as though nothing is wrong. So much so to where I like stopped for a second and I was like, aren't you in labor? Like in my head, like I was like, have I been dreaming of this whole situation? Because she's like, nothing's wrong. It's like she was walking out to like take the trash out. And I was like, hey kid, like what's going on? And she just goes, yeah, I just got to get to the car. And I was like, oh, okay. All right.
In my head, I was like, I literally probably have 2 seconds until another contraction hits, and I don't want to be standing. Like, I need to get into the back seat of the car, get on all fours again, and get ready for that contraction. In my head, I'm just bolting to the car. Like, I have one mission.
You didn't even look like panicked or worried.
Well, I was never panicked or worried during his labor.
Well, right. But, like, you would expect that almost, like, in a situation of like that, where it's like, okay, you're in pain, or you're experiencing all these contractions, and, like, down here in the basement, it was obvious, like, okay, you're in distress, you're laboring. Mm-hmm. But when you're up walking, I thought at one point I was like, well, maybe like it stopped, because sometimes labor can stop. But then I was like, well, why is she up here if it like just stopped? Like, why is she out in the garage? Her demeanor was just so calm and as though nothing was wrong, nothing was going on, that it made me think that like she just all of a sudden wasn't in labor again. But she definitely was.
Yeah, the second I got to the car, I had another contraction. Like, I got into the car and it was like contraction hit right away.
I helped her in, shut the door, and I was like, okay, now I gotta go get the doulas, because I'm sure she just left them. And I'm coming back into the garage again, and now they're coming out the garage door onto the ramp, and they're like, she just like up and left us. They're like, we just looked up and she was gone. Pretty humorous little moment there.
Yeah. I didn't know at that point I was like 10 centimeters dilated, like fully ready to go. I didn't know that that's what that meant when I felt like I needed to push. I get in the car, and I never noticed this, but car seats are not like straight on, because I obviously wanted to labor on all fours, and so I tried to get in on my hands and knees, and I got in and I was on my hands and knees in the back seat. Back seats are kind of like tilted a little bit, so I'm like tilted, but as soon as I got to the car I had that contraction, so I went through that contraction, and I was just like, after that contraction I remember being like, I need to reposition myself for this car ride. At that point I realized that Sam had put the back seat down a little bit, like the back of the back seat down, and so I kind of just got up on my knees and like held on to the back. We didn't talk on the drive to the birth center. That's
actually not true.
Really?
Yeah, at one point you told me to slow down.
Oh, I did tell him to slow down.
She's like, Sam, slow down. I was like, okay. And that's literally, I think, all that we said the whole way there, because you were just so focused.
And I do remember my contraction when we got to the birth center. I got out of the car and immediately had a contraction while I was standing up. Probably my worst contraction. Fell right onto the asphalt. Yeah, outside in the parking garage. And it was actually snowing that evening, or that morning, I guess. I was just in a robe, and I remember...
So it was very cold out.
Yeah, because the doulas, when I had those 2 contractions, and before they told me I could go to the car, they were like, do you want to put on pants? And they're like handing me pants, and I'm like, no. So when we got to the birth center, I was in my robe, and I remember that was the only time I really felt cold. And I was like, it's snowing out here. I kind of fell onto the ground. Sam kind of caught me, so I was like...
Yeah, you were like kind of draped on to me.
Yeah, I had a contraction like that, and then I did the same thing after that contraction was over. I just bolted to the room that I knew I was supposed to be in.
The midwife was like coming out with like a wheelchair. She's like, hey, do you want to like get in the wheelchair? And Sam just like blew right past her. She's like, no, I'm good. I'm just like, just tell me where to go.
You didn't bring the bags in or anything. You just followed me.
No, because I didn't know if you were going to have like a contraction halfway to the room and like fall over. Yeah. So I was just like right there next to you, like ready to catch you all the way into the room.
Oh, I see. Were you next to me on the way into the room?
I was holding your arm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, see, focused. She had no idea about anything else. She was like, room. She was like, okay, contractions, get to the car. From the car, she's like, get to the room. Anything else that happens, she just didn't care about.
Yeah, the worst thing ever was having a contraction standing up, so I just like didn't want to go through that. And then I got to the room, and the tub wasn't full yet of water.
Yeah, I think it's because we got there so fast. Like, they're like, oh, we'll have everything ready for you when you get here.
Yeah.
And I think the next thing they knew, they're like, oh, they're on their way. Like, we got to do this now.
So I immediately got into the tub when it was done, and at that point in time, like I said, I didn't realize that I was like because I needed to push, I didn't know that that meant that I could push and it was fine to push and that he could come out at any point in time and that I was fully dilated and all that. Like, I didn't realize that. And so I get in the tub and I'm like, with every contraction, I wanted to push. And something that they had told us in our prenatal care at the birth center was that when you go into labor and you get there, the midwife will kind of go in and out of the room until you're ready to push or until the baby's coming.
Right, like they'll just kind of monitor like lightly.
Yeah.
And let you just kind of actively labor on your own.
Yeah.
Unless there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, she never left though.
Yeah, so she never left the room. And I thought, like, I remember in my head thinking, that's a little weird because they told me she was going to leave. And she put gloves on. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, Sam was not in the tub with me yet. I kind of got on all fours in the tub and she never left. She stayed like behind me and I pushed with every contraction, but the room was kind of quiet. Like, the midwife was behind me. The doulas were like kind of on the side and Sam was still on the side. And then the nurse was there, you know, and she routinely was checking his heart rate, my heart rate, and making sure everything was okay. But I remember our midwife never left the room. And just in the back of my mind, I was like, that's a little weird. Like, maybe I am pushing at the right time, but I don't know. But with every contraction, I was just going for it. But I was feeling a little defeated because I was just like, am I prematurely doing this? Like, is this the right thing to do? Should I be pushing? Like, I feel like I need to push, but am I only like 7 centimeters dilated and I'm just pushing too early? I didn't know what anything meant, and everybody was just kind of really quiet and letting me do my thing, which I appreciate, but I just needed somebody to tell me like, no, it's okay.
Like, go at it. Like, yeah. Get after it.
Yeah. So for a while I was pushing and just like I was feeling defeated because like nothing was happening in my mind and I didn't know if anything would happen.
Yeah. And you were like kind of, from the sounds of it, you were like half committing to the pushing.
Yeah.
Because you were hesitant. And you were like, oh, if this is the right time or not. So like, I was pushing, but not really, you know.
I did that for a while, probably like 30, 40 minutes. That's not a while. I know a lot of people push for a long time, but I got to a point where I was just mentally just feeling a little defeated and it was really quiet in the room. And it was also feeling like a little awkward in the tub because I started out on all fours trying to push and there's like that buoyancy with the water. And so I felt like I was just floating and it's really hard to push against something when you feel like you're floating. And so I started on all fours and then I kind of flipped so I was on my back and pulling my knees up to my shoulders. And then I was just really floating in the tub. And so I just felt like weird and then I felt like I was prematurely doing things. And so I asked Sam to get in the tub with me. And I think I asked you to get in the tub with me before I ever asked the midwife anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I asked Sam to get in the tub with me and he kind of sat on that stoop, like the step.
There's a step into it,
yeah, there's a step to get in the tub, so he sat right there and then I got back on all fours and just held him the same way I did in the shower. Mm-hmm. And the midwife was still behind me. I kept pushing and pushing and I was really just like pushing against Sam and that felt a lot better. I remember feeling so defeated and just like looking back at our midwife and being like, is this the right thing to do? Like, am I doing the right thing?
Am I allowed to be pushing?
Yeah, I was like, did I say am I allowed?
I think you said something of like, should I be pushing right now?
She was like, yeah, you can push, like you're doing fine. And she's like, his head's right there if you want to feel it. And so I reached down and I felt his little head and she's like, yeah, I can see the hair on his head if you want to feel him. And so I felt his head and then you felt his head. And I was like, okay. And that gave me a little bit of encouragement. I did a few more contractions, feeling defeated. And I looked back at the midwife again and I was just like, is this okay? Like, can I be doing this? Is he going to come type of thing? And she was like, oh yeah, you were 10 centimeters when you got here. And
any one of these can be it.
Yeah, she was like, any one of these pushes, he could come out. And like the second she said any one of these pushes, he could come out, I was like, oh, I got this then. And I think like maybe 4 contractions later, I had pushed him out.
Yeah.
After obviously he came out, the midwife was like, okay, I'm gonna, untangle him off the umbilical cord and then I'll push him through your legs and you can kind of take him up. I was so delirious at this point that Sam didn't think I actually heard that. A lot of this story is stuff I've been told, but I do remember hearing her say, I'm gonna push him through your legs and you can like grab him and pick him up. And so Sam also reached in to grab him, and I guess we both grabbed an arm.
Yeah, like at the same time.
This is like the scariest part of our labor and delivery. He had a heart decel immediately after he was born. They did his heart rate and she was like, it's 140, and he was right here looking up at me, and he was fully alert, like fully eyes open looking up at me, and she's like, 140 is his heart rate, and then the nurse was like 30 seconds later, she's like, 70 is his heart rate. The doula got the resuscitator out and they gave me an oxygen mask and I put it on him, and you could see a little bit of fear in the midwife's eyes. And they're suctioning him, but he was fully alert, like his eyes were looking around and looking at me. His heart rate just dropped, and at the same time I had to get out of the tub because they have to know how much blood I'm losing. Immediately after he was born, the tub filled with blood. That whole time frame is really a blur to me because I was so focused on him and holding the oxygen and trying to get out of the tub, which was like a huge tub, at the same time without like falling. Sam probably has a better recollection of that time.
It was like a little scary because, like you said, we're like sitting there and everything at first is like, okay, like there's that moment of, okay, now take a breath, you know, like everyone's kind of waiting, the anticipation, and he wasn't taking a breath and he wasn't crying, and like I kind of expected him to like start crying after a little bit, and you know that like it takes a second, and you know that he still has the umbilical cord attached to him, so it's like, okay, we have time, but been a little bit longer than it's comfortable. And that's right when the nurse was like, she just said 70. I saw like the midwife's face like go white because like she was right next to Sam. I don't know if did you see that?
No, I was just so zoned in. I mean, I was just staring at him.
Yeah, because like the midwife was like watching him, like kind of like right over her shoulder, like where I'm sitting now, and like she like looked up and her face, like the blood drained out of her face, and she's like, okay, like let's get, she's like, get out, what was it called, the resuscitator, like what is it?
We didn't know she said that though, because
I heard it.
Oh really?
Yeah, and that's, I heard her say that, and then she turned to me and she said, I need you to move because we need to get her out of the tub because we also got to like make sure, you know, she's not hemorrhaging. And so I got out of the tub. And this whole time, like, they bring over, like, the little oxygen mask, and they're trying to get her to move, and, like, she's, like, almost refusing to move because she was wanting them to pay attention to him, so she was, like, kept asking them, like, well, is he okay? Is he okay? Because at this point, like, his heart rate still hadn't come up. They were, like, trying to just get her out, and I was like, okay. I was like, well, can I help with anything? And the midwife was like, yeah, like, get her out of the tub. I think they were just, like, worried because you're slippery, you're wet, it's a big tub. I helped get you up and get you over, but like there's blood everywhere at this point. So at this point I'm like, okay, to me I was like, is my wife hemorrhaging and my baby's heart rate stopping? And like, I mean, even now I'm getting a little choked up because it was like the most terrifying moment I think I've ever experienced, because like just no idea what was going on. The midwives and the nurses and the doula were amazing. They worked really well, very professional. It probably seemed longer than it was. Yeah, we finally got over to we got her over to the bed, got you up on the bed, and at this point we still had the oxygen mask on him, and I hadn't heard anything more. So I didn't know if he was still okay or if they were like hoping he was like gonna like change because they were still monitoring his heart rate, but I hadn't heard anything different. And so eventually it got to the point where I was like, okay, they would have told us something was wrong if something was wrong by now.
They were all just like, I remember them all being so zoned in on him and getting me on the bed, but I wasn't focused on me. Because I guess my placenta had detached, and the midwife was also like, we got to get her on the bed because I got to deliver her placenta. Like, her placenta has to come out. And I was like, how do you know that it's coming out right now? Because I was told that it could be like 5 minutes after labor or 45 minutes after labor. So I was just really confused that she knew that. I didn't realize the tub had filled with blood, and that kind of means your placenta had detached. I had a gush of blood as soon as I got out of the tub, right?
It was like all running down your legs and everything. And that's why it was like scary, because like I knew there was supposed to be blood. Like I was prepared for some blood, but it was a lot. And I just didn't know if it was gonna like stop. And that was really scary. I
was so zoned in on him because no one had said anything. And I think it was like right before I delivered the placenta, they were like, okay, he's good. His heart rate's back up. And after that, I was fully aware of delivering my placenta because I remember it being like, oh, that stings a lot. And it's a really weird feeling when you deliver your placenta. It's like delivering a jellyfish. Like, it's the weirdest feeling ever. Like, that was hard. The placenta was just like, oh, this stings. And this feels like a jellyfish. He was fine. I was laying on the bed, and then they were really zoned in on my blood loss at that point. I felt fine, so I wasn't like super worried about it. It wasn't until like maybe 3 hours after he was born and we were laying there on the bed where I was like, ooh, I feel really woozy. Yeah. I didn't lose a lot of, I lost like the normal amount of blood.
Yeah.
So I think I was just feeling that way because I hadn't eaten since like dinner the night before, and I delivered him at like 5:30 in the morning, and they make you a loaf of bread at this birth center. And that was the best food I've ever had in my entire life.
It was so delicious. It was a great loaf of bread.
Yeah. And I was starting to feel my energy, and our discharge time was 4 hours after he was born. So we were discharged at 9:30, and I think we left around 10:15.
Yeah, we stayed a little longer, but it was really great. It was like, honestly, with the exception of the scary moment, it was a great experience.
Yeah, and I can say that too.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that gave birth, and I can say that, like...
Well, I'm only saying it because she has said it. I'm not telling her how she felt.
It honestly was like a perfect birth experience. Like, so positive, so miraculous, such a God thing.
Yeah, it was like really just peaceful.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was, honestly, I was really nervous about the whole natural birth thing. Not because I didn't think I couldn't do it, because women do it all the time, but just like, it's so intense, you know? And you're just like, and you don't know what to expect because it's a natural birth. And like, the thought of pushing a human being out of you is...
a little rough.
It's terrifying. And even like now thinking about it, I'm like, that's terrifying. I don't know. The Lord totally like blessed his birth, and I didn't tear. There were really no complications other than his heart decel. I've watched a lot of birth vlogs and a lot of people talking about their positive unmedicated birth experience, and that is totally what I had. And a lot of people are like, it was miraculous and I could totally do it again. I will say that there was nothing in me after birth that was like, yeah, let me do this again. I definitely felt like I could wait a minute. Like, I will say it was positive. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. It is the hardest thing I've ever done. How did you think you were going to feel versus how you felt?
I had a good expectation of what it would be like. It wasn't 100% accurate, but I think it was a good chunk of it was accurate. So like, I wasn't worried going into it, but I did think to myself, I was like, man, like, depending on how difficult and like painful it is for her, because that was one thing where like, I just didn't know how she was going to react. I was like, man, like, I might have a moment where I just feel like completely helpless. I hate that feeling. I hate the feeling of like there needing to be something fixed and I can't do it. And so I was like kind of anticipating and mentally preparing for that, because I was like, man, if she's like in a lot of pain and needs help, I'm gonna hate the fact that I can't help her. In reality, what happened was I kind of just was like mind blown by the fact of how you handled it. Like, there was never a moment where she was like panicking. There was never a moment where she was feeling like, she was never like, oh, I can't do this, or like help, or like I'm in so much pain, or like nothing like that. She was constantly just like focused, just like taking it head on. And so I never was worried throughout the whole thing for her in that sense. Throughout the whole process, I was just like, man, she's kind of crushing it. I'm honestly really proud of you.
I think it's the coolest thing that women can give birth like that. Like, that's, you know, however you decide to give birth, whether it be C-section, naturally, epidural, whatever the case may be, the fact that women can grow another human being and like give them life into this world is just...
it's quite the miracle.
It's so crazy. And it happens every day, and like billions of people do it all the time, but it's just...
yeah, like this person right here. That guy 9 months ago was like almost didn't exist.
He's like the size of a peanut 9 months ago. I feel really blessed and super grateful for everything. We're quite the team.
You guys crushed it.
Your mommy's best friend. Yeah, that is our positive little experience, and our little baby boy is here. Sutton is here in the world, and he's really upset right now because he's waking up hungry.
Grumpy, hungry boy.
Yeah, grumpy, hungry boy. So we're gonna go feed him. I love you guys. I'm really excited to share this journey with you. We have just had so much fun sharing our lives on YouTube, and it feels so surreal that now we're sharing
our baby.
Because one of the first videos we ever recorded on YouTube was sharing our story of all of our pregnancy loss and miscarriages.
Wasn't it the first video?
I'm pretty sure it's the first video I ever posted on YouTube.
Yeah.
And now it's so surreal.
We have our little miracle baby.
We have a miracle baby.
Took a lot of work to get here.
Thank you guys so much for just following along with our lives. And we love you guys more than I could probably ever say. I'm probably going to tear up, but I've got a lot of hormones going on right now. So I love you guys, my YouTube family, and you're the best. I am so excited to share this part of my life. Thank you for watching, and I will post really, really soon. Love you guys. Bye.